1, to assist us make full recovery of the amount owed Menzgold by Horizon Royal Diamond in Dubai. As an act of good faith, we are willing to engage the Attorney General's office on the best possible way for them to aid Menzgold by employing international law and diplomatic relations to ensure we achieve this objective. 2, to unfreeze our companies and my personal bank account and asset for us to utilize these as vehicles to get productive in order to meet our liabilities, owed to our customers and some business associates in our bid to resolve our liabilities immediately. As of now, Brew Marketing Consult, Mensgold and I cannot credit or debit any bank account in Ghana. This is why it is highly imperative to consider this kind request. We cannot access money. We just can't access money. We can't, do without the bank account, especially when we have money laundering allegations, So once that is done, once we engage government, whatever decision they take, and we would also get to the customer's leadership, and then we would all judge, and then do consensus building, then agree on timelines that would be of mutual benefit. So we'll definitely, publish the timelines, but we would need you to be just a little bit patient. Mensgold is not a Ponzi scheme. Let me seize this opportunity to shed light, more light, on the operations. I'm sure this is in reference to the gold collectible trade and not our gold export and then our assaying and smelting and assaying. Now, the gold collectible trade was a platform that we created, our creation, and I mentioned innovation when I was speaking. So we own the proprietary, to the gold trading platform. It's a platform that has a lot of, buys, so many buys, and then it has a lot of around the world, and then it has a lot of sellers, which is the traders, which they are gold collectible, all right? So we only own the platform. It is our creation.
The developments in the banking and financial system and the matters arising call for great concern for all who have been affected by this financial sector turmoil, especially because it is an issue that threatens our country's national security. We must all be worried about the businesses that have collapsed, the licenses that have been revoked, the massive job losses, the hardship this is causing to some customers, and the trauma of having their lifetime savings in jeopardy. There's also the consequence on the health and well-being of customers and workers, including honoring their obligations as parents by providing for their families and dependents, paying school fees of their wards, and paying rent in order to give their families decent and safe places to lay their heads, among others. These are trying times, indeed, and as a leader of the main opposition party, I cannot look on unconcerned. We cannot look on without our voices being heard and without being on the side of the many people who may be agonizing over the situation because they have lost their capital investments.
You're welcome back. And you heard the voices of, is this supposed to be Menzgold or defunct? Has its license not been revoked by the SEC? There's a challenge to that in court, correct? Okay. So I'm just thinking, it's been almost a year since its troubles began, so we are forgetting a few things. So that is Nana Apia Mensah, you heard saying a number of things, and then you heard former President John Mahama also sharing his view on the recent developments. Joining us now on this segment is Elliot Amwako. He is Deputy Director, Banking Supervision Department of the Bank of Ghana. Thanks for joining us, sir. Right. And thank you for last week, too.
Welcome.
Okay, great. So Let's quickly see what we can deal with as far as Menzgold is concerned, so we get into the financial sector cleanup. Okay, I want to start with you, Clara. So, Nana Mensah has said a number of things, including seeking the help of the Attorney General to retrieve money that he says is owed to him or his company, and that when that is done, all his customers will be settled. We understand the Attorney General has replied and said he should make that formal. Some are saying, why is he being entertained? Some are really angry that he's even giving space to hold press conferences. What do you say?
Samson, I actually don't really want to comment on this Menzgold saga. The reasons are simple. I think all the claims have won this judgment. His lawyers know, I mean, you know that when you win a judgment, you know how the execution process is to take. And it's not the Attorney General who goes enforcing judgments for private entities and all of that. The lawyers of his clients know what to do. So really, the regulators also know what to do. My interest really is the regulators because, and I say my interest is the regulators because it is the regulators who have a responsibility to protect the Ghanaian public. I want to see what they're doing to protect the Ghanaian public. But as for the issue, I really don't want to.
Okay,
because
so
I don't think there's much to talk about.
You just said something, and you are not talking to me. So give us the education. Those who need to understand more plainly. What do you mean when you say it's a judgment? So if they say they have won a judgment and they indeed have won one, even though lawyers for some of their aggrieved clients, Amanda Clinton, is challenging that. She says that she's asked for a copy of the judgment for a period now. They've not been able to furnish her with one. So if indeed they have won a judgment, what should happen? Why you say you don't need Attorney General? So all of this is... For every lawyer, when you go to court and you get judgment, it doesn't end there. You go into what we call execution. There's a process. So you just go through the execution processes. Now, if it is a foreign judgment, for example, there are rules in every jurisdiction as to how you go about enforcing a foreign judgment. So their lawyers know what to do. That's what I say, their lawyers know what to do if indeed they have won a judgment. It doesn't take the Attorney General of any, because this is a private litigation from what I understand. So if it's a private litigation from what I understand, it's not the Attorney General's job to go around enforcing judgments for private entities. Their lawyers do that. And I believe their lawyers know what to do if indeed they have won a judgment. Yeah. Okay. You still don't want to explain that bit a bit more. But if what we understand is that there's a judgment, you know, apparently won in the UEA. And so it was within that country, so it will not be a foreign judgment. Since it was fought there, he has lawyers, we know, across the globe, international lawyers. So what would they need to do? What do you have to tell the victims in this case? What exactly is Nam1 or his company supposed to do without the help that he seems to be asking from the Attorney General?
Now, the general rule of the thumb is that when you have counsel, another lawyer doesn't go around advising you what to do on the matter. But the simple reason, yes, if you have won a judgment in UE, it doesn't matter. It depends on whether the company, the person you've won the judgment against has assets within the UE or does not have assets within the UE. If the person has assets within the UE, you must know the execution processes that you have to take within the UE. If the person has assets in the UE that are not enough to cover for the judgment debt, but there are assets elsewhere in other jurisdictions that you need to go and chase, you know your lawyers know the processes to take and go and chase those other assets in those other jurisdictions. So really, like I said, the truth is, if you have a judgment, the question is whether or not the person you have the judgment against has assets to satisfy the judgment debt. If you are satisfied that they have assets.
The call he's making is baseless?
Yes. I don't really see, because it's not the Attorney General.
Why would he be making that call? He would have checked with his lawyers, right?
That's why I said I didn't want to talk about it, because once he has his lawyers, but yes, every lawyer knows how to enforce the judgments that they have. And I actually am concerned about Attorney General using taxpayers' assets to be chasing private. When the lawyers are involved, no.
Would the Attorney General have a locus?
No.
Would they have a grounding, a standing in law to even intervene.
You are not lawyer for the person. So under what basis I mean, exactly what... So that's why I say that look, this is enforcement of judgment. And in enforcement of judgment, it is your lawyers who decide where to find the assets and go against it. And here, the lawyer is not the Attorney General.
Okay, interesting. Mr. Sekwe, I don't know if you agree with Clara. They say that they have a judgment, they have won a judgment of 39 million United States dollars in Dubai, and that it's $39 million. If they get it, they will take care of everyone who is owed, and the Attorney General should assist them and including diplomatic means with the United Arab Emirates so that, you know, they can get this money. Clara is saying this may be a further deception of the clients or the victims in this matter, because all she's saying is that when you appoint me as your lawyer and I go and fight a case for you in a civil court and I win money for you, it is my job as your lawyer to file a process in court. It begins with what is called entry of judgment. Then you have a number of days within which to pay me the money. If you can't pay me the money, you will come and beg me, and then we sit down and structure payment, perhaps in installments. If I find you are not doing all of that, then I'll go into a second step. I may go ask for your bank accounts to be, you know, frozen. They say garnishi. Then the amount in there, the court will look at it. If it is enough to pay my money, they pay all of it to me. If it is not enough, they say don't give the people, the owner of the money, any part of it. Give all of it to the one who has won the judgment. If it is more than that, give what is sufficient and keep the rest. If you can't find bank accounts that have sufficient money or the money is not enough, then you proceed. You can look for properties, movable ones to start with, or maybe, and then if that's not enough, you can go to immovable properties. And then you get all of these sold, and then your money will be paid. There's no need for government intervention and all of that. That's all she's saying, and trying to suggest that it sounds like a prank.
Well, I'm not I'm not a lawyer, and I was listening, you know, attentively. But let me take the issue from 3 dimensions. It is my understanding also that the state itself has a case, you know, involving Menzgold.
Let me state that we have been also joined by Jacob Sa. He's lawyer and insolvency practitioner. Thank you very much for making time.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
I
want to deal with this briefly and go to the banking cleanup.
Yeah. So my point is, first point from the 3 dimensions is the state, I believe, continues to have, you know, a case involving Mensgold. In that regard, you know, could the assistance, you know, shed light on the state's own, you know, own case? Secondly, Nam, you know, Nana is a citizen. Is a citizen. And to the extent that, you know, we may use our diplomatic, you know, you know, offices abroad to assist any citizen within reasonable costs and whatever. I think that, you know, that could be extended.
Clara is saying, among others, that the judgment he has won, he didn't win it against a state. He has won it against a private company.
I understand. I will come
so
to that.
Why does the government come in with a diplomatic process?
Well, I made a first point that, you know, and I come to, let me finish. The third point is there are depositors. Right. And he claims that is where the money is. And he has won a case. If he succeeds, either individually, with minimum state help, to get that money, and I'm giving a benefit of the doubt, could that come to alleviate, you know, the suffering and pain of depositors, you know, and others? So I'm looking at this, not being a lawyer. I get a point that this is a private, you know, whatever, but looking at him from the perspective of a citizen and from the perspective of those who are suffering and whatever, I would say in these circumstances, you know, having been, you know, a minister or whatever, yeah, receive the petition, refer it to, you know, my lawyers for advice, whether we should going on. And I believe that is what the Attorney General, you know, the process has begun. Every minister would, of course, as he's a citizen, as I said, and I have it, yes.
Just to clarify, that there's a difference between if you had won the judgment against a state and if you have won the judgment against a private person.
That perfectly well,
if you win the judgment against a state, you can employ diplomatic processes. But against private persons, depending on their laws, their government cannot go and be because you need to enforce, you need legal processes to enforce it. And the Attorney General wouldn't have locus even for their government to, if people win judgments against private Ghanaian citizens, the Attorney General cannot come and call you and say, oh, former Minister of State, there's this judgment against you, we are coming for this A, B, C, D to pay. You have to come to Ghana and go through the execution process and then come against your assets. Okay. So there's a procedure.
Quick one. My understanding of the work of our diplomats is that there are instances, you know, where even individuals commit a crime and it's a citizen. You know,
crime is against the state.
Yes, I understand. I mean, outside. But for the embassy to have information, facts, you know, to provide to say family members who are worried, and I'm not asking for anything beyond what would have been assistance that would have been.
If it was a crime, they could.
Exactly, and I'm saying that between the Minister for Foreign Affairs and the Minister for Justice, I believe that they can assess the request.
Let me ask Jacob Sir what he also thinks, and he says that in any case, his bank accounts here have been frozen. Yes. Both company and personal accounts have been frozen. His assets have also been, you know, frozen by EOCO. And that if you really want me to have access to assist pay the depositors back, not exactly depositors, they don't call them depositors, clients back, these are some of the measures you should take to help me. What do you say?
Yes, I will start by saying that in his press statement, he referred to the fact that he received consular support from the Ghana embassy in UAE. So to an extent, he's already received some support from the state of Ghana. But the point is this, that this, as Clara said, this is a private transaction gone wrong. And you have obtained judgment against a private individual or a private company. If the courts there have the same sort of structure as we have here, there's independence, and there's a limit to which, as government, or even as Attorney General, you can interfere. And I think that's a point that Clara has made. We should also appreciate the fact that there's been a lot of hue and cry on this matter. Menzgold, people, I mean, we've heard all these things.
People are dying because they lost their money. We have heard stories about people who have a stroke or people who needed the money for emergency medical help, and now they are dying penniless.
Yes, so if the state can facilitate it, I don't know how. If the state can facilitate it, that is fine. I think that that's part of the reason why even his assets have been frozen, because you do not want this person to have access to these assets, so that he displays them. So now that these assets have been frozen, of course, he could enter into arrangements with EOCO, with the other government agencies, to see how these assets can be realized, and then customers paid off. So I think that
is it suggested slightly from what you're saying that once some accounts and all these things frozen, granted that there's money in them and so on and so forth, now he may not be able to pay for the processes to execute the judgment, and even if the Attorney General was supposed to get in the legal aspect, it will only assist his lawyers, because they cannot physically, practically be involved in the execution of the judgment.
Exactly, that's my point.
Okay.
The Attorney General cannot practically get involved in the execution of the judgment.
Okay. Yes. I really hope that Elliot will not say that he will not comment about this.
No comment. And something you can understand why.
Yeah.
So for strategic reasons, I think I would prefer to stay away from Mensgold.
Okay. But yeah. Just a second. Those who say that you have started issuing some warnings a little earlier, but you didn't prioritize them in a way that people would have gotten sufficient caution, and now they've gotten into this. So partly, not only the SEC, but also the Bank of Ghana has failed the victims.
Well, the Bank of Ghana did what it had to do by issuing those warnings. And I remember clearly how those warnings were rather received In fact, some of the customers rather took us on for issuing them those warnings, and this is the effect of what we're seeing.
Okay.
And that's what happens when you have to deal with unregulated entities, because now here he is without any state backing in terms of how to recover anything. But unfortunately, these depositors, if I may call them that, are exposed. And
he's saying that they are dealing with innovation that is ahead of regulation, and that happens everywhere when big, bold innovations come up. He gave examples, you know, how Mark Zuckerberg and all of them have come to be established brands. So it looks like regulations, you know, have been lagging.
I don't think so, Samson.
And he's actually asking for guidance now, that he should be assisted so he will know who is going to regulate, then he can bounce back.
No, I don't think so. Our rules are clear when it comes to deposit-taking business. I don't see any innovation that would run ahead of regulation. The regulations exist.
Okay.
The frameworks are there. You need to fall in line so that at least the ordinary depositor will be protected in all cases. And this is not what we saw.
Okay.